The observation deck of the Galactic Coalition warship Sovereign Blade hummed with nervous energy as Commander Vex'ik of the Kalthari Empire watched the view screen with his 4 eyes narrowed in concentration. Around him, representatives from 17 different species stood in tense silence, their attention fixed on the planet below. "This is ridiculous," muttered Sub-Commander Thrin, her blue-scaled hands gripping the railing so hard it creaked. "We are sending our finest warriors against one human facility. One. How much damage could they possibly do?" Vex'ik clicked his mandibles together, a gesture equivalent to a human clearing their throat. "The reports from Sector 9 were very specific, Thrin. 300 of our best fighters went down to that research station. None returned." "Propaganda," barked General Court from the Brevax delegation, his 6 legs stomping impatiently on the deck plating. "Humans are soft, weak. They have no natural weapons, no armor plating, no venom sacs. They barely survived their own planet's evolution. This whole exercise is a waste of military resources." "Then you will not mind," Vex'ik said slowly, leading the next assault wave personally. Court's antennae flattened against his skull. "I did not say that." The screen flickered as the first drop pods began their descent through the atmosphere. Inside each pod sat warriors who had trained their entire lives for combat. Vex'ik recognized the insignias: Kalthari shock troops, Brevax assault specialists, Thornian berserkers, and even a squad of Mixian shadow dancers, beings who could phase through solid matter at will. "Wave 1 is landing now," announced Lieutenant Pax from the sensor station. "Thermal signatures confirm the human facility is active. Population reading shows approximately 50 humans inside." 50, Court repeated with a snort that sounded like grinding metal. "Against our 300. This will be over before second meal." Vex'ik said nothing. He had been a soldier for 43 cycles, fought in the border wars, survived the Plague Nebula campaign, and earned 17 commendations for tactical excellence. In all that time, he had learned one crucial lesson: never underestimate an enemy you do not understand. The first wave hit the ground hard. Through the tactical feed, Vex'ik watched as the drop pods cracked open like eggs, disgorging their deadly cargo. The warriors moved with practiced efficiency, forming assault formations that had been perfected over millennia of warfare. The human facility looked disappointingly ordinary, a series of low buildings constructed from local stone and metal, surrounded by a fence that would not stop a determined child, let alone a Thornian berserker. No defensive turrets, no shield generators, no visible weapon emplacements. "They are not even trying to defend themselves," Thrin observed, confusion creeping into her voice. "Where are their fortifications?" "Perhaps they have already surrendered," suggested Ambassador Krill, his tentacles writhing with anticipation. "Humans are known for their sense of self-preservation." The lead Kalthari squad approached the main entrance. Through their helmet cameras, Vex'ik watched as the door simply opened, not blasted open, not hacked, just opened, as if welcoming guests. A human stood in the doorway. She was small by Coalition standards, barely reaching the chest height of a Kalthari soldier. Her skin was dark, her hair pulled back in a simple tail, and she wore what appeared to be casual work clothing, not combat armor. She held no visible weapon. "Hello there," she called out cheerfully, her voice carrying across the tactical channel with crystal clarity. "Welcome to Research Station 17. I am Dr. Maya Okonkwo, Facility Director. Can I help you gentlemen with something?" The squad leader, a veteran named Crix, raised his plasma rifle uncertainly. "You are under arrest by order of the Galactic Coalition. Surrender immediately, and you will not be harmed." Dr. Okonkwo tilted her head, the way a curious bird might examine an interesting insect. "Arrest? That seems a bit extreme for a first meeting. Did you guys even try calling ahead?" "We have excellent communication equipment. State-of-the-art, really. Cease your prattling and surrender," Crix barked, his patience clearly wearing thin. Okay, she said, raising her hands in what appeared to be a gesture of compliance. "But before you arrest me, would you mind terribly if I asked a quick question?" "What question?" Crix demanded. Dr. Okonkwo smiled. It was not a nice smile. "Is this just the warm-up, or did you actually bring everyone you have?" Crix hesitated, confused by the strange query. In that moment of hesitation, everything went wrong. The ground beneath the assault formation erupted. Not with explosives, though that would have been dangerous enough. Instead, the warriors found themselves sinking into what had appeared to be solid earth but was actually some kind of adhesive compound disguised to look like dirt. Warriors who had survived battles against the most fearsome predators in the galaxy now found themselves stuck like insects in tree sap. "Trap!" Crix shouted. Too late. His squad thrashed and struggled, but the more they moved, the deeper they sank. The Mixian shadow dancers, confident in their ability to phase through matter, attempted to slip through the trap. They discovered, much to their horror, that the adhesive had some property that disrupted their molecular cohesion. 3 Mixians simply fell apart into their component atoms, ceasing to exist in any meaningful way. "What is happening?" Court bellowed from the observation deck, his composure finally cracking. "How is this possible?" Vex'ik studied the tactical display with growing unease. The trap had caught perhaps 30 warriors, but that still left 270 combatants. Surely this was the worst the humans could manage. He was wrong. The second squad, approaching from the west, triggered a different surprise. Innocent-looking rocks suddenly split open, revealing compact railgun emplacements that fired ball bearings at a significant fraction of light speed. The Thornian berserkers, famous for their regenerative abilities and nearly impenetrable hide, discovered that kinetic energy cares nothing for biological defenses. The first volley turned 6 berserkers into red mist. "Fall back," screamed the squad leader. "Establish defensive positions." But there were no defensive positions to establish. The terrain itself seemed hostile. Trees that had appeared dormant suddenly revealed themselves as camouflaged weapons platforms. The very rocks and boulders that might have provided cover were rigged with shaped charges that detonated when warriors took shelter behind them. Through it all, Dr. Okonkwo stood in the doorway, watching the carnage with the detached interest of a scientist observing a particularly engaging experiment. "You are murdering my warriors," Court shrieked, spittle flying from his mandibles. "This is a war crime. They attacked a civilian research facility," Vex'ik pointed out quietly. "I believe the humans would argue they are within their rights to defend themselves." A Brevak's assault squad, attempting to use their superior speed to rush the entrance, made it approximately 10 meters before triggering what appeared to be a localized gravity well. The 6 soldiers collapsed under their own suddenly multiplied weight, their exoskeletons cracking like dry twigs under the pressure. "How many have we lost?" Thrin whispered, her scales having paled to a sickly white color. Lieutenant Pax checked the readouts, his whiskers trembling. 147, Commander, in less than 7 minutes. 147 of the Coalition's finest warriors, gone, against 50 humans in a research facility with supposedly no military capabilities. The remaining soldiers, no longer confident in their overwhelming superiority, began to actually use tactics. They spread out, moved carefully, scanned for traps before advancing. They worked together, covering each other's movements, using proper military doctrine instead of relying on brute force. It bought them approximately 3 more minutes. The humans, it turned out, had prepared for tactical movement too. Holographic projectors made empty ground look solid and solid ground look empty. Thermal masking made safe zones appear dangerous and dangerous zones appear safe. Audio generators created phantom noises that drew warriors into kill boxes while masking the approach of actual threats. And through it all, the humans themselves remained almost invisible. "Where are they?" demanded General Court, his voice taking on a note of panic. "We have lost over 200 warriors and we have not even seen a human combatant yet, just that one female at the entrance." As if responding to his complaint, the tactical feeds finally showed humans. They emerged from concealment with an efficiency that spoke of extensive training, but they were not soldiers in the traditional sense. They wore casual clothing, carried weapons that looked homemade rather than military grade, and moved with the relaxed confidence of people engaged in a particularly enjoyable hobby. The first human Vex'ik saw was a large male with red hair tied back in a knot. He leaned around a corner, fired 3 times with what appeared to be a primitive chemical projectile weapon, then ducked back into cover. 3 Kalthari soldiers went down, holes punched through their supposedly bulletproof armor. "Did he just kill 3 soldiers with an antique firearm?" Thrin asked in disbelief. "Apparently," Vex'ik confirmed, his mandibles clicking rapidly in agitation. Another human, this one small and young-looking with bright yellow hair, stood on a rooftop throwing objects that resembled nothing so much as children's toys. The objects landed among a squad of Brevak soldiers and detonated with enough force to send body parts flying. "Grenades," Lieutenant Pax identified. "Homemade from the look of them, the humans appear to be using improvised weapons." "Improvised?" Court's voice cracked on the word. Improvised weapons are defeating coalition military technology. The battle, if it could even be called that anymore, continued for another 12 minutes. The humans used ambush tactics, hit-and-run strategies, and psychological warfare with devastating effectiveness. They played recordings of coalition soldiers screaming over loudspeakers. They used lights and sounds to disorient attackers. They even deployed what appeared to be trained animals, local predators that had been somehow convinced to attack anything that smelled like off-world technology. When the last coalition soldier finally fell, caught in a net made from locally sourced plant fibers but somehow strong enough to hold a Thornian berserker, while smaller humans simply walked up and used more primitive projectile weapons to finish the job. Dr. Okonkwo walked out into the killing field. She surveyed the carnage with the same mild interest she had shown at the beginning. Bodies and body parts littered the ground. Coalition blood, in 17 different colors, stained the earth. She looked directly at one of the few functioning tactical cameras, her gaze seeming to pierce through the view screen and directly into Vex'ik's soul. "So," she said pleasantly, her smile still in place, "is that it? Or are you sending more? Because honestly, we barely got warmed up here. My team is actually a little disappointed. We expected more of a challenge." On the observation deck, silence reigned. Every being present stared at the view screen in various states of shock and horror. General Court made a sound like air escaping from a punctured hull. Ambassador Krill's tentacles had gone completely limp. Lieutenant Pax simply stared, his mouth hanging open in disbelief. Finally, Vex'ik found his voice. "Thrin, send a message to High Command." "What should I tell them, Commander?" Vex'ik closed all four of his eyes, feeling suddenly very, very old. "Tell them we need to re-evaluate everything we think we know about humans, and tell them to send reinforcements. Many reinforcements." "How many, sir?" He opened his eyes again, looking at the small human female standing calmly among the bodies of 300 elite warriors, looking like she had just finished an afternoon stroll rather than a massacre. "All of them," he said quietly. "Send all of them, and pray to whatever gods you believe in that it is enough." The Emergency War Council convened 3 hours after the massacre at Research Station 17. Vex'ik stood before the assembled coalition leadership, feeling the weight of thousands of eyes upon him. The council chamber aboard the flagship Eternal Victory could hold representatives from all 47 member species, and today every seat was filled. Fleet Admiral Zahn of the Velcross Dominion presided over the gathering, her massive form coiled on the central dais like a living mountain. Her scales, each one the size of a dinner plate, gleamed under the harsh lighting as she fixed Vex'ik with a stare that could melt hull plating. "Explain," she hissed, her voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. "Explain how 300 of our finest warriors were obliterated by 50 humans in a research facility." Vex'ik activated the holographic display, showing the tactical recordings. The assembled delegates watched in stunned silence as the battle, such as it was, played out before them. When Dr. Okonkwo delivered her final taunt, asking if the coalition was sending more because her team was disappointed, several delegates made choking sounds. One Harnix representative actually fainted, their crystalline body structure shattering against the floor. "This is unacceptable," bellowed Councillor Drax, pounding his 4 fists against his seat. "Humans are a Class 7 species. They should not possess technology capable of defeating our warriors. They should not possess the tactical knowledge to orchestrate such a defense. They are primitives who only achieved faster-than-light travel 60 years ago." "Apparently," interjected Ambassador Yilix, her voice dripping with sarcasm that translated poorly through the universal communicators, "we may have miscalculated their classification." "Miscalculated?" Drax roared. "We did not miscalculate anything. The humans cheated. They must have stolen technology, hired mercenaries, used forbidden weapons. The analysis is complete," Lieutenant Pax reported from the technical station. "All weapons and defenses employed by the humans were constructed from locally available materials. The adhesive trap was made from tree sap mixed with synthetic polymers they manufactured on site. The railguns were built using salvage components from their own research equipment. The gravity well was a repurposed mining tool. Everything was improvised from civilian resources." The chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted over each other. Accusations flew, threats were made. Fleet Admiral Zahn slammed her tail against the deck with enough force to crack the reinforced plating, and the noise subsided. "Silence," she commanded. "Commander Vex'ik, what is your tactical assessment?" Vex'ik had spent the last 3 hours reviewing the recordings, analyzing every detail, trying to understand what had happened. He had reached a conclusion that terrified him. "The humans were toying with us," he said quietly. The chamber fell silent again, but this time it was the silence of pure disbelief. "Toying," repeated Admiral Zahn, her voice dangerous. "You believe this was not their full capability? Watch the recordings again," Vex'ik said, highlighting specific segments. "Here, at timestamp 4 minutes 37 seconds, a human could have eliminated an entire squad, but chose instead to wound 3 soldiers and force the others to spend time evacuating them. Here, at 7 minutes 12 seconds, a human allowed a Kalthari warrior to pass within arm's reach rather than take an easy kill. And here, at the end, Dr. Okonkwo deliberately looks into the camera and issues what can only be described as a challenge. "What are you suggesting?" asked Councillor Mix, her feathers ruffling with agitation. "I am suggesting," Vex'ik said carefully, "that the humans at Research Station 17 were conducting an experiment. They wanted to see what our warriors could do. They were testing us, measuring our capabilities, evaluating our tactics, and they were disappointed." "Preposterous." General Court struggled to his feet, his earlier panic replaced by indignant rage. "You are saying that civilian researchers defeated our military forces as some kind of test? That they were not even trying?" "Yes," Vex'ik said simply. "That is exactly what I am saying." Before anyone could respond, the communication station erupted in frantic beeping. The technician on duty, a young Brevax named Tix, went pale as he read the incoming message. "Admiral," he said, his voice cracking, "we are receiving a transmission from the humans. They are broadcasting on all frequencies." "Put it through," Admiral Zahn commanded. The holographic display shifted, and suddenly they were looking at Dr. Maya Okonkwo again. She sat in what appeared to be a comfortable office, a cup of some steaming beverage in her hand. Behind her, several other humans moved about casually, as if they had not just killed 300 coalition soldiers. "Hello again," she said brightly. "I hope you got my earlier message. Since we have not heard back, I thought I would reach out directly. Open up a dialogue." "This is Fleet Admiral Zahn of the Galactic Coalition," Zahn said, her voice tightly controlled. "You have committed acts of war against coalition forces. Surrender immediately or face total annihilation." Dr. Okonkwo laughed. It was not a nervous laugh or a mocking laugh. It was genuine amusement, the kind of sound someone makes when hearing a particularly good joke. "Admiral, with all respect, I think you may be operating under some misunderstandings. First, your forces attacked us. We defended ourselves. That is pretty clearly self-defense, not an act of war. Second, you sent 300 warriors to arrest 50 scientists. That seems like massive overkill, which suggests you were either trying to intimidate us or you vastly overestimated how dangerous we are. Third, and this is the important part, those 300 warriors were defeated by 50 researchers using equipment we built in our spare time from local materials." She paused to take a sip of her beverage. "Now, I am not a military strategist," she continued, "but I am reasonably intelligent, so let me walk through some basic math with you. If 50 civilian scientists with improvised weapons can defeat 300 of your best warriors, what do you think would happen if you faced actual human military forces, with actual military equipment, and actual training in killing things?" The council chamber had gone deathly quiet. "You are bluffing," Councillor Drax said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Am I?" Dr. Okonkwo set down her cup and leaned forward. "Let me tell you about my team, Admiral. We have a botanist who specializes in toxic plant compounds, a geologist who knows exactly how to make unstable ground very stable or very unstable, depending on the need, a physicist who understands kinetic energy better than most weapons designers, an engineer who can build pretty much anything from pretty much anything else. We even have a culinary specialist whose knowledge of chemistry makes her really good at creating things that explode in interesting ways." She smiled again, and this time there was steel beneath the warmth. "We are scientists, Admiral. We study things. We learn. We experiment. We adapt. And when your warriors came to arrest us, we applied the scientific method. We formed a hypothesis about your capabilities. We tested that hypothesis, and we gathered data." "What data?" Vex'ik found himself asking before he could stop himself. "Oh, excellent question," Dr. Okonkwo said, apparently delighted. "We learned that your armor is strong against energy weapons but vulnerable to kinetic penetration at high velocities. We learned that your tactics rely heavily on overwhelming force rather than adaptability. We learned that your warriors are trained to fight specific threats but struggle when confronted with unconventional approaches. We learned that your command structure becomes paralyzed when standard doctrine fails. Should I continue? You have made your point, Admiral Zahn said coldly. What do you want? What do I want? Dr. Okonkwo leaned back in her chair. I want you to leave us alone. We came to this planet to conduct research on local ecosystems. We were not bothering anyone. Then you showed up with an invasion force and tried to arrest us for reasons nobody has bothered to explain. That seems rude. You are conducting unauthorized research in Coalition space. Zahn said, your presence here is illegal. According to laws we never agreed to, Dr. Okonkwo countered. Humanity is not part of your coalition. We did not sign your treaties. We do not recognize your authority over us. You do not get to tell us where we can or cannot conduct scientific research. Then we are at an impasse, Zahn said. Are we though? Dr. Okonkwo said. Because from where I am sitting this seems pretty straightforward. You leave us alone, we leave you alone. You try to arrest us again, we defend ourselves again. Except next time, we will not be collecting data. Next time, we will be significantly less friendly about the whole thing. You dare threaten the Galactic Coalition, Councillor Drax roared. I am not threatening anyone, Dr. Okonkwo said calmly. I am simply explaining probable outcomes based on observed evidence. That is what scientists do. Admiral Zahn was silent for a long moment, her massive form utterly still. Finally, she spoke. Let us say, hypothetically, that we were to accept your terms. What guarantee do we have that you will honor this agreement? What guarantee do we have that you will? Dr. Okonkwo shot back. Trust goes both ways, Admiral. But if you want something more concrete, how about this? You leave us alone, we share some of our research findings with you. We have made some fascinating discoveries about the local ecosystem that might be valuable to your scientific community. And if we refuse? Zahn asked. Dr. Okonkwo shrugged. Then I suppose you will send more warriors. Bigger ships, heavier weapons, and we will defend ourselves again. Maybe we win, maybe we lose, but I can guarantee you one thing. Even if you defeat us, you will pay a price that makes 300 dead warriors look like a minor inconvenience. She stood up, and for a moment her casual demeanor slipped, revealing something harder underneath. You want to know the truth, Admiral? Humans are really good at war. We have been killing each other for thousands of years. We have turned it into an art form. We have weapons that can crack planets, diseases that can sterilize ecosystems, strategies that can bring down civilizations. We choose not to use those things, because we have learned, slowly and painfully, that peace is better than war. But do not mistake our preference for peace as weakness. Do not mistake our desire for cooperation as inability to fight. She sat back down, her casual manner returning like a mask. So here is my final offer, Admiral. Turn your ships around. Go home. File whatever reports make you feel better about what happened here, and we will pretend this whole unfortunate incident never occurred. Or do not. The choice is yours, but choose quickly, because my botanist has some very interesting spores that she is eager to test, and I would hate for them to accidentally contaminate your fleet. The transmission ended. The council chamber remained silent for nearly a full minute. Finally, Councillor Mix spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. She was serious about the spores, wasn't she? Almost certainly, Vex'ik confirmed. Humans do not bluff, not about things like this. This is intolerable, Drax shouted, but the fire had gone out of his voice. We cannot allow a Class 7 species to dictate terms to the Coalition. Our reputation, our authority, everything we have built, will mean nothing if we are all dead, Ambassador Yilix said quietly. Or worse, if we win at such cost that our enemies use our weakness to destroy us. Fleet Admiral Zahn sat motionless on her dais, and Vex'ik could see the calculations running behind her eyes. She was weighing options, considering outcomes, doing exactly what a good commander should do. Finally, she spoke. Commander Vex'ik, you will establish a communication channel with Dr. Okonkwo. Inform her that the Coalition accepts her terms. All forces will withdraw from the system immediately. The area will be declared a restricted zone, off limits to Coalition vessels. Admiral, you cannot be serious, Drax protested. I am completely serious, Councillor, Zahn said, her voice like stone. We sent 300 warriors against 50 scientists and lost. I will not compound that disaster by sending 3,000 warriors, or 300,000 to die proving a point. The humans want to be left alone. We will leave them alone. But our reputation, Drax wailed. Our reputation will recover, Zhaan said. Dead soldiers do not. She turned to face the assembled council, her massive form radiating authority. Let this be a lesson to all of you. Never ever underestimate a species based on initial assessments. Never assume that primitive technology means primitive thinking. And most importantly, never forget that the most dangerous opponent is the one who does not fight the way you expect them to fight. What about Earth? Asked Councillor Mix. The human homeworld. Do we simply ignore them? Pretend they are not expanding into territory we consider ours? We open diplomatic channels, Zhaan said. Proper channels, through proper diplomatic means. We treat them as equals, not subjects, because that is what they have proven themselves to be. Vex'ik approached the communication station to carry out his orders. As he composed the message to Dr. Okonkwo, he could not help but reflect on the strange turns that fate sometimes took. 3 days ago, humans had been classified as a minor species, barely worth the Coalition's attention. Today, they had forced the most powerful military alliance in known space to retreat without firing a shot in return. The message was sent and acknowledged. Within the hour, Coalition forces began their withdrawal from the system. On the view screen, Research Station 17 remained exactly as it had been, peaceful and unassuming, giving no hint of the carnage that had occurred there. As the flagship began its departure, Vex'ik watched Dr. Okonkwo's facility fade into the distance. He thought about her final words, about humans being really good at war. He believed her, and he sincerely hoped that the Coalition would never have to find out just how good, because if 50 scientists with improvised weapons could defeat 300 elite warriors, he did not want to imagine what an actual human military could do. He really did not want to imagine that.